I was on hallway duty the day the legend walked in. Not the kind of legend people clap for. The kind people laugh at first, because laughing is cheaper than admitting they're nervous. Her file landed on my desk with a soft thud. Name. Caravel species. Human origin. Earth classification. Death world gravity tolerance. Extreme pain response. Concerning temperament. Polite. The registrar had typed it twice. Like that made it safer. I'm Rila. Records aide at Orion Collegium, which means I manage student files and try to keep future galactic leaders from getting themselves eaten. Our school likes to brag that we accept all species. IT sounds noble, until a Death Worlder actually shows up. When Kara walked through the main arch, the atrium changed. Not louder, sharper, whispers. Snorts. That brittle little laugh people use when they want to look brave. She wasn't tall. Not compared to the armored Harkins or the long-limbed ruined cadets. She looked small, but not fragile. There's a difference. Plain jacket. No medals. No glowing slits. No clan symbols. Dark hair tied back. Eyes forward, shoulders steady, and walking at her left heel was her pet. Yes, pet about knee-high. For the color of dust. Ears alert. Tail slow. Eyes constantly measuring. In muzzled. In shot collar. In containment field. Just a simple harness that we require 3 permits to bring a house plan on a campus. She brought a predator. The creature looked at me for half a second. I froze. Not because it looked angry, because it looked awake. The kind of awake that says, I've already decided you're not a threat, but I'll remember you anyway. Kara stopped at the central directory drone. I'm here for intake, she said calmly. Caravale. This is Kip. Of course it had a soft name. Human's name, nightmares, things you could whisper to a baby. The drone chimed politely. Animal companion detected. Please confirm classification. Emotional support, service unit, or research specimen. Kara blinked once. Companion. The drone paused. Companion is not an approved academic category. Kara smiled slightly. Not sweet, not arrogant, just patient. Then list him. The drone's lights flickered. Before it could finish arguing, Kip sat down, right in the center of the atrium, calm, still, like a stone that chose to be there. Foot traffic split around him without anyone asking. Even the loud students lowered their voices. A ruined sophomore almost stepped too close that Kip's head turned, just slightly. The ruin changed direction instantly, pretended it was his idea, and that was when the first uncomfortable thought slid into my mind. The school had no idea what it had. Admitted. Morning assembly bell rang. Students poured into the grand lecture hall. I stayed near the back wall, pretending to review schedules. Really, I wanted to see what happened when Kara met the social food chain. IT didn't take long. A group of upper track cadets blocked the entrance. Polished collars. Rank pins. That effortless cruelty of people who have never been told no. Their leader was Vero. Harkin broad. Plated skin. Eyes like wet metal. Famous for training accidents. He stepped in front of Kara. Oh, the Death World student, he said loudly. I expected someone taller. Laughter on cue. Kara stopped. She didn't flinch. She just looked up at him and waited. Vero leaned closer. And you brought what? A toy. Kip, she said evenly. His name is Kip. Does it bite? Yes. More laughter, the kind that says, we can do whatever we want. Vero reached toward the harness. Slowly, done on purpose, that I expected Kara to pull the animal back. Apologized that that's what most new students did. She didn't move. She just said calmly, don't touch him. Vero chuckled. Or what? Or he'll decide you're a problem. The laughter thinned. Vero touched the harness. Kip didn't bark, didn't snap, didn't jump. That he stood. An air changed, and I don't know how to explain it. A species that never evolved alongside predators. IT wasn't noise, IT was pressure. The world narrowing. Kip stepped half a pace forward. Vero's grin cracked. Just a little? Kara spoke softly. Kip, leave it. Instantly, Kip's Saturday Vero straightened. Embarrassed, his pride stitched itself back together. You think you can give orders here? He hissed. You're a freshman. Earth is barely past screening. Kara smiled faintly. We passed. Vero sneered. You can't bring animals into assembly. Either it leaves, or you do. Kara glanced toward the corridor, wide arch security gates. Standard containment systems. She nodded once. Okay. Vero blinked. Okay. Carapointi, keep. Outside, Kip stood and padded toward the corridor without hesitation, weaving through legs like water. Vero smirked. See? Not so hard. Kara took one step after Kip, then stopped, and said gently, now tell him he can come back. The laughter stuttered. Vero frowned. What? I can ask him to leave, she said calmly. He trusts me. She folded her hands behind her back. But you're not his person. Vero scoffed. It's an animal. Correct. Vero turned toward the corridor. Kip, back here. Nothing that he shouted louder. Kip, come. Still nothing that Kara's eyes stayed on him. He's obedient, she said quietly. Not submissive. Vero's plating darkened with anger. He stepped toward the corridor. That was a mistake. Kip had stopped just beyond the threshold, body sideways, blocking the narrow passage like it had been measured. Not aggressive, just placed. Vero approached, reached down. Kara's voice cut through the silence. Vero, don't. His fingers brushed the harness. Kip's lips pulled back. Not dramatic, not wild, clean, efficient teeth, teeth that had touched bone before. Vero jerked his hand back so fast he nearly stumbled. Nervous laughter scattered through the hall. Kara tilted her head. Then stopped, making it interesting. That hit harder than the teeth, and that's when faculty entered. Dean Oren took the stage, smiling, polished, cold. Welcome, students, he began smoothly. We begin this term with unity, discipline, and mutual respect. His eyes found Kara. Personal fauna are prohibited in academic zones. Student Vale, remove your animal immediately. Kara raised her hand politely. Kip is already outside. Then retrieve it after assembly. I can't. The hall leaned in. Explain, Dean Oren said. Kara's voice remained calm. I told him to wait outside. Call him back. She paused, just long enough to sharpen the silence. No gasps, angry murmurs. Dean Oren's smile thinned. You are not in your home institution. You will follow rules. I'm following rules, she said. He's outside. Then why can't you call him back? Kara met his eyes. Because if I call him back right now, she glanced toward the corridor, he'll come back fast. The hall went quiet. Dean Oren signaled security. Point two wardens moved toward the corridor. Kara spoke again. He'll think you're taking me. He's an animal, the dean snapped. Yes, Kara replied evenly, with instincts. The first warden reached for Kip's harness. Kara inhaled, just slightly. Not fear, calculation, stop. The warden touched fur. Kip moved, not forward, sideways at the flash of motion. Teeth closed on the stun baton. Not the hand, the baton twist, metal clattered across the corridor. The hall exploded in a noise. Kip stood over the fallen weapon, body angled, blocking, calm. Dean Oren's smile was gone. Call it off. Kara didn't raise her voice. I can. She looked at him steadily. But you need to stop treating him like an object. The security shutters began lowering. Students shifted nervously. The exit was sealing. Control was slipping. And for the first time, the entire Orion Collegium understood something. This wasn't a PET, IT was a boundary, and Kara was holding the leash. The corridor shutters kept lowering, not fast, not dramatic, slow enough for everyone to realize what was happening. The exit was sealing. Kip stood perfectly placed in the narrowing gap, body angled, tail stiff, eyes forward. Not growling, not lunging, just present, and somehow that was worse. The hall noise shifted from outrage to something tighter. Students don't like losing control, especially not elite students. Especially not in public. Dean Oren's voice cut through the rising chaos. Wardens, remove. The animal. Kara's reply was calm. If you grab him again, he'll think you're attacking. He just assaulted staff, the dean snapped. He disarmed staff. Kara corrected. That landed. Because it was Trude, and no blood, no torn flesh. Just a dented ego and a baton on the floor. The first warden flexed his hand, embarrassed. It's an animal, he muttered. Kara nodded once. Yes. And you keep saying that like it makes you safe. The second warden lifted his baton and activated it. The crackle of stun energy filled the corridor. Students leaned forward, some excited, some afraid. Kip didn't move. The warden stepped in, swung. Kip shifted, fast, precise, forcing the swing into the wall panel. Sparks burst. The corridor lights flickered, And that was when the security system reacted. The shutters dropped further. The overhead speakers chimed in that calm, artificial voice schools love, safety protocol engaged. Please remain seated. Remain seated. While a predator blocked the only exit. The irony would have been funny if my throat wasn't dry. Dean Oren's polished composure started to crack. Student Vale, he said sharply. Call off. Kara didn't flinch. I can. She looked at him steadily. But you need to stop escalating. You are threatening the institution. No, she said evenly. You are. That was the moment Vero stepped forward again. That of course he did. Bullies hate silence. This is what humans do, he called loudly. They bring beasts and demand special treatment. A few cadets echoed him. Easy to join the loud side. Kara turned her head slowly toward him. You touched his harness. Vero stiffened. So, he said, so he decided you were unsafe. Vero scoffed, but he did not step back toward the corridor that he remembered the teeth. Dean Oren snapped, enough. Student Vale, you are under campus discipline. Now, Kara lifted her hands slightly. Not surrender, not apology, just showing she wasn't about to swing. Okay, she said. The hall shifted. Relief. Smirks. Satisfaction. She was backing down. Except she wasn't. She took one step toward the corridor. Kip, she said softly. It's me. Kip's head turned instantly. The tension in his body eased a fraction. Kara crouched at the safe side of the threshold. Not grabbing. Not commanding. Just offering her hand. Kip. Back. He moved. Half a step. Just enough for the sensors to register clearance. The shutters stopped lowering. The corridor lights steadied that a collective breath released through the hall. Dean Oren straightened. You see, he said. It obeys. Kara rose slowly. He cooperates. There was a difference. The dean didn't like that difference. Remove it, he ordered. Kara nodded once. Kip. With me. Kip trotted smoothly back under the half-lowered shutters. Calm as ever. Students shifted away from him. Vero didn't speak. Not now. Dean Oren descended from the stage. Robes swaying, face tight. You will surrender the animal to containment, he said quietly. No, wasn't loud. IT didn't need to be. Dean Oren blinked. You refuse? Yes. Why? He demanded. Should I allow a prohibited predator inside my institution? Kara looked around the hall. AT the armored cadets, AT the clawed species, AT the reinforced walls built to contain tempers and teeth. Then she looked back at him. Because you invited me. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Dean Oren's nostrils flared. You are not indispensable. I know, she said softly. That's why I brought Kip. The line hit like a dropped blade. Students went very still. The dean's voice hardened. Your pet will be taken. Kara's eyes sharpened. Try. The word wasn't a threat. IT was a calculation. Behind me, I realized something with a slow chill. Kara wasn't trying to win. She was setting terms on a death world. Boundaries aren't suggestions. They are survival. Dean Oren lifted his slate, summoning more security. Overhead lights brightened. The hall speakers chimed again. Safety protocol escalation. The first warden stepped toward Kara to reach for her arm. Kip rose. Not lunging. Not snarling. Just rising. Every muscle in the room tightened. Kara's voice became sharp and clean. Kip. Block. Kip turned and trotted down the aisle. Sat squarely in the center of the main doors. Perfectly placed, the alarms began pulsing faster. Students started shouting. Open the doors. What is happening? Remove it. Kip didn't react. He wasn't staring at Vero. He wasn't staring at the wardens. He was staring at the doors, like a sentry, assigned. And that scared them more than teeth. That a predator with emotion can be distracted, that a predator with purpose cannot. Dean Oren's voice cracked slightly. You are endangering everyone. Kara looked at him steadily. No, you are. You forced the hall into lockdown. Your sensors did that, she replied. Your fear did that. His hands trembled. He hid it by clenching them. You'll be expelled. Kara nodded once. Fine. The hall murmured again that IT was ending. She would be removed, the order restored. Except she added one more sentence. Expel me, she said calmly. But do it correctly. The dean blinked. What? Call your legal liaison. Call interspecies relations. Call the Earth Embassy contact you pretend you don't need. The professors stiffened. Paperwork. Real consequences. If you touch me without protocol, she continued, I will file a complaint that buries this school for a decade. The hall went very quiet. Teeth were scary. But paperwork? Paperwork was lethal. Dean Oren tried to recover authority. You're bluffing. Kara smiled slightly. Try me. Vero snarled, desperate to reclaim control. She's manipulating you. Kara glanced at him like he was a stain. You touched my pet. You tried to humiliate me. You failed. Vero stepped toward her again. The wardens leaned in. They understood student violence. That was familiar. Kara's voice flattened. Vero, back up. Or what? He sneered. Her eyes held his. Or, I'll let Kip decide how far you can go. Vero stopped. He didn't want to, but he did, and everyone saw it. Dean Oren's composure finally cracked. Student Vale, call your animal away from the doors, and this can be handled quietly. Quietly. Not fairly. Not safely. Quietly. Kara looked around the hall at the sweating cadets, the wardens itching for control, and the professors calculating damage. Then she said, no, not quietly. Correctly. And that was when the side door near the stage opened that a new figure entered. Not robes. Not a smile. Head Marshal Juno Cray, scarred, still, real authority. She walked down the aisle slowly, eyes taking in everything. Kip at the doors that Vero's didn't discard. The warden's Kara, Student Vale, Marshal Cray said calmly. I'm here to resolve this. Kara nodded once. Good. Marshal Cray stopped at a respectful distance. Call your animal away from the doors. No, some students groaned. They wanted it over. Marshal Cray lifted a hand slightly. The hall quieted instantly. That was power without volume. Tell me what you want, she said. And for the first time, Kara smiled. The hall was silent. Not scared silent. Listening silent. Marshal Cray stood in the aisle, hands relaxed at her sides. She didn't look at Dean Oren. She didn't look at the wardens. She looked at Kara. Tell me what you want. Kara didn't rush. That was the first thing I noticed. No anger. No checking. No victory. Just clarity. First, she said, I want staff to stop trying to grab Kip. Marshal Cray nodded once. Agreed. Dean Oren made a sharp sound. Marshal, she didn't even look at him. Dean, quiet. And he went quiet. The room noticed that too. Kara continued. Second, I want Cadet Vero to stop approaching me. Vero stiffened. What? Marshal Cray's gaze snapped to him. Cadet, sit down. Vero hesitated. Marshal Cray did not blink. Now. Vero, Saturday hard. Like gravity had increased just for him, that a ripple moved through the cadets. The first crack in the social order. Kara kept going. Third, I want a formal exception filed for my companion. Murmurs. Not a favor. Not temporary silence. Official. Documented. Dean Oren couldn't contain himself. That is impossible. Marshal Cray finally looked at him. Dean, she said evenly, stop talking. He swallowed his reply. Kara added, and fourth. She held Marshal Cray's eyes. I want a public apology for ordering staff to physically remove me. The hall reacted gasps. Offended clicks. Shocked whispers. Dean Oren looked like someone had struck him. Marshal Cray studied Kara carefully. That's a lot. Kara nodded once. So, is putting a Death Worlder in a corner. Silence. Not dramatic. Heavy. Marshal Cray's eyes shifted toward Kip, still sitting at the doors. What is he? She asked. Kara answered simply, a dog. Confused murmurs moved through the hall. The word meant nothing to most of them. Marshal Cray tilted her head slightly. A hunting animal? Yes. A pack animal? Yes. Marshal Cray nodded slowly. So he's not guarding the doors because he hates us. Kara's voice stayed steady. He's guarding the doors because he thinks you might take me. The hall shifted. That reframed everything. Marshal Cray took a careful step closer, not toward Kara, but angled so she didn't look like she was closing distance. And if I convince him you won't, she asked quietly, he'll move? Yes. The marshal considered that. Then she said something that changed the air. I'm not here to win. I'm here to end this safely. That landed, because it wasn't pride, IT wasn't control, that IT was purpose. Let's do it your way. Marshal Cray continued. No grabbing, no buttons, no crowding. You and I walk out calmly. You file your exception. We review the cadet's conduct. She paused just slightly, and the dean apologizes. Dean Oren made a strangled sound. Marshal Cray did not look at him. Yes, Dean. The hall watched. Waiting, Kara studied the marshal for a long moment. You'll enforce it? She asked. Yes. Not loudly. Not theatrically. Just yes. And that was when Kara softened. Only slightly. Okay. She turned her head toward the doors. Kip, she said gently. Release. Kip's ears flicked. Kara added softer still. It's safe. The entire hall held its breath. Kip stood. He walked away from the doors, padded back down the aisle, calm. Not hurried. Not tense. The alarm tone slowed. The system voice announced, safety protocol de-escalation. The tension didn't vanish, but it cracked. Students exhaled. Some laughed shakily. Vero looked like he had swallowed broken glass. Marshal Cray gave one small nod. Good. Then she turned her gaze to Dean Oren. He stood stiff, humiliated, angry, calculating damage. Dean, she said. He forced the words out. I apologize, he said stiffly, for the misunderstanding. Kara didn't move. Marshal Cray's eyes sharpened. Dean. His jaw clenched. I apologize, he said louder, for ordering staff to physically remove you. Silence. Kara nodded once. Thank you. It wasn't warmed at IT wasn't triumphant. IT was accepted. Marshal Cray motioned toward the side exit near the stage. Let's go. Kara whistled softly. Kip fell in a step beside her, calm again. Like nothing had happened as she passed my wall, her eyes flicked toward me that I froze. Then she smiled faintly. Not threatening, not friendly, just aware. You're the record's aide, right? She said quietly to him. My throat went dry. Yes. You might want to update my file. With what? I managed. She glanced back toward the hall where 1,000 students were still staring. Add, she said calmly, that I'm not here to be tolerated. Then she walked out. Kip beside her, Marshal Cray behind her. The doors closed, and only then did the lecture hall breathe again. Vero stood in the aisle, shaking with fury. This isn't over, he shouted. The professor snapped. Sit down. Arguments broke out instantly. She threatened us. You started it. It's a predator. It's trained. It's dangerous. It's disciplined. The noise rose that I stayed against the wall and thought one simple thing. This was not over. Not because Kara wanted revenge. Because Orion Collegium had just learned something it didn't want to admit. If you corner a Death World student, you don't get to decide when the corner ends. Later in the records office, I pulled up her file. The system asked in its calm, useless voice. Update requested. Please specify changes. I stared at the blank field. What do you write after watching a knee-high animal stop an entire institution with nothing but placement and patience? I started typing. Student demonstrates advanced boundary enforcement under stress. Companion animal exhibits trained restraint and controlled protective response. Recommend formal accommodation protocols and staff training. Avoid physical contact without consent. That I paused. Then added one more line that not mistake politeness for weakness, because that had been the real mistake. By midday, campus chatter was everywhere. Some said she trained a monster. Some said the school tried to imprison her. Some said Vero lost his hand. None of it was true. The truth was simpler that a girl from a death world walked into a soft world institution, and the institution blinked first. By afternoon, an official notice went out. Temporary companion allowance granted to student Vale, pending review. Temporary, pending, polite panic. Vero's disciplinary review was scheduled. He was furious. Kara, she walked across campus like nothing had happened. Kip at her heel, head up, eyes calm. Students moved aside, not out of respect, not yet, but because they remembered the aisle, they remembered the doors, they remembered the alarms. And they remembered that policy does not matter to teeth. I watched from the records window as Kara approached the upper track training yard. Vero was there. Of course he saw her. His posture tightened. He glanced at Kip, and he took one step back, without meaning to. Kara stopped at the fence rail and watched the drills. Vero couldn't leave it alone. He walked toward her, trying to look relaxed, trying to look brave. Got special treatment? He called. Kara raised an eyebrow. Accommodation. He spat the word. You embarrassed the school. You embarrassed yourself, she replied calmly. He stepped closer. You think you won? No, that stopped him. No. Kip doesn't make me untouchable, she said evenly. She leaned slightly forward. My choices do. Vero's claws flexed, then sparmy. Murmurs of excitement. Drama. Kara exhaled slowly. No, coward. She smiled faintly. No. Smart. You're scared. I'm bored, she said. I actually laughed out loud in the empty office. She continued, calm and sharp. I don't fight for your ego. I fight for my life. Vero tried one last angle. Then your pet fights for you. Kara glanced down. Kip, stay. He's Saturday perfect. My pet doesn't fight for me, she said softly. He stops people from doing something stupid. Vero leaned in too close, without thinking. His hand lifted slightly. Kara's voice dropped, like touching me. Vero froze, his hand lowered fast. The nearby cadets noticed. A few snickered. His face twisted with humiliation. This isn't over, he snarled. Kara nodded calmly. You're right. Then she turned away, like he wasn't worth another second. Kip rose and followed. The training yard went quiet as she walked past, because everyone there understood something now. Kara didn't need to win fights. She only needed to make you think twice before starting one. And Kip wasn't a weapon, he was a boundary, with fur. But from the balcony above, Dean Oren was watching, eyes cold, resentful, calculating. And Vero was whispering to his friends, plotting to Kip's head turn whenever shadows shifted. Wrong. Always watching, always ready. Orion Collegium had admitted a Death World student. Now I had to decide what that really meant. And I had a feeling. Next time someone tried to corner Caravale, Kip wouldn't just block a door, he'd block something much bigger. The next incident didn't happen in a hallway. The IT happened in paperwork, which, in my experience, is far more dangerous. 2 days after the assembly, a formal complaint appeared in the internal system, filed by Dean Oren. Subject, behavioral risk, human student, an unregulated predator. The wording was careful, concerned, professional. IT suggested that Kara's presence created environmental instability. That Kip represented unpredictable escalation potential. It did not mention Vero. IT did not mention Baton. IT did not mention who grabbed first. IT recommended temporary suspension pending psychological evaluation. I stared at the report for a long time. This is how soft institutions fight. Not with claws, with language. Kara was called to administrative review. Closed chamber, small room. Controlled lighting point, 3 faculty members. Dean Oren, Marshall Cray. And, for reasons I still don't understand, records oversight, probably to make it look official. Kara walked in with Kip at her heel. No tension, no defensiveness. Just present. Kip sat beside her chair without being told. Dean Oren folded his hands. Student Vale, he began smoothly. We have concerns. I assumed, she replied calmly. You created a lockdown event. Your system did, she corrected. You threatened institutional order. I established boundaries. You instructed your animal to block exits. Yes. No apology. No denial. Just yes. Dean Oren leaned forward. Do you understand how that appears? Kara tilted her head slightly. Yes. And it appears I didn't want to be grabbed. Marshall Cray hid a small smile. Dean Oren pressed on. You escalated. Kara shook her head once. I responded. Silence. Point. One of the professors cleared his throat. Student Vale, perhaps this is a cultural misunderstanding. Many species here use physical gestures for dominance testing. Karablinka. And on Earth, she met his gaze. On Earth, grabbing someone without consent can get you bitten. The room went still. Not because of the threat, because of the simplicity. Dean Oren changed tactics. You claim your companion is controlled. Yes. But you admit it will react if it perceives threat. Yes. So you are bringing conditional violence in a shared space. Kara didn't hesitate. No, she leaned slightly forward. I am bringing predictable response in a shared space. That landed differently. She continued. If no one grabs me, no one gets blocked. Marshall Cray nodded once. Dean Oren's jaw tightened. You expect an entire institution to adjust around your animal? Kara shook her head. No, I expect an institution that invited a Deathworlder to understand what that means. The professor on the left frowned. And what does it mean? Kara answered without drama. It means don't corner us. It was so simple, so obvious, and yet it sounded radical in that room. Dean Oren shifted strategy again. If we approve a formal exception, he said carefully, you will agree to additional conditions. Kara waited. No unsupervised access to high-density events. Phoenix. Mandatory behavioral monitoring. She paused. For me? For you and the animal. She nodded once. Fine. Dean Oren blinked. You agree? Yes. No fight, no resistance. That unsettled him more than argument would have. He wasn't negotiating with a rebel. He was negotiating with someone reasonable. And reasonable is harder to paint as dangerous. Marshall Cray finally spoke. Dean, she said calmly, the risk profile shows controlled behavior under stress. That is not instability. That is training. Dean Oren didn't like that. But perception matters. Kara looked at him. Yes, she said. It does. And right now, she added quietly, your students believe I'm dangerous. You are. No, she said calmly. I am inconvenient. Silence. Because that was closer to the truth. Later that afternoon, a new policy draft circulated quietly among faculty. Deathworld integration guidelines that IT included. No physical contact without consent. No dominance testing rituals involving humans. Clear communication of space and boundaries. Companion animal protocol recognition. IT didn't mention Kara by name. But everyone knew. Vero saw it too. And that's when pride turned into resentment. He didn't confront her directly. Not again, he was. Smarter than that now. Instead, he started something smaller. Rumors that Kip had attacked before. The humans trained animals for combat. That Kara had threatened the dean. Whispers spread fast in elite institutions that I saw the reports stack up in the system. Anonymous safety concerns. Requests for review. Subtle attempts to reframe the narrative. Kara ignored it. She went to class. She participated. She outperformed half the upper track in tactical simulations. That made it worse, because now she wasn't just tolerated, she was competent. And competence is threatening. 1 week later, during a mixed-species combat theory session, it happened again. Not teeth, not alarms, pressure. The instructor paired Kara and Vero for a strategic exercise, simulated containment breach scenario. Team-based. Vero smirked when he saw the pairing. He thought this was his moment. The scenario loaded on the hologrid. Objective. Evacuate civilians from compromised zone. Multiple exit routes. Hostile unknowns. Time pressure. Vero immediately began issuing orders. Aggressive, direct. Block this corridor. Force retreat here. Close these gates. Kara watched the map quietly. Then she asked one question. Where do the civilians go when you close that gate? Vero frowned. It funnels them. Into what? He hesitated. The simulation showed a bottleneck. A choke point. Predictable. Dangerous. Kara adjusted one variable. Opened a secondary route. Created distributed movement. Reduced pressure. Vero scowled. That leaves flanks exposed. Yes, she said calmly, but it prevents panic. The instructor watched silently. The simulation ran. Vero's original model showed 38% casualty projection. Kara's adjusted model dropped it to 12%. Without increasing engagement risk, the room went quiet. Because everyone saw it. She wasn't escalating. She was preventing escalation. After class, Vero approached her again. No audience this time. Just ego. You think you're smarter than me? Kara didn't look annoyed. No, that threw him off, no. I think you're trained to win, she said evenly, and I'm trained to survive. He didn't have a response for that, because deep down, he knew the difference. That evening, I updated her file again. Performance metrics, exceptional, crisis modeling, advanced, behavioral stability. How did I pause before adding one more note? Subject demonstrates consistent de-escalation through boundary clarity. IT sounded clinical, but what it meant was simple. She didn't need Kip to dominate the room. She needed Kip to remind the room where the line was from the balcony above the training yards. Dean Oren continued to watch. That he wasn't stupid. He understood something now. Kara wasn't dangerous because she had a predator. She was dangerous because she didn't play by intimidation rules. You couldn't shame her. You couldn't corner her. You couldn't provoke her into losing control. And worst of all, you couldn't make her small. That kind of student changes institutions. Quietly, slowly, from the inside. Point one night, as I was closing the records office, I saw her walking alone across the courtyard. Kip at her side. Moonlight on stone. Campus quiet. Marshall Cray stepped out from the shadows. They spoke briefly. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught one sentence. Marshall Cray said, "You know they'll test you again." Kara nodded. "I know." "And next time," Kara looked down at Kip, then back at the marshal. "Next time," she said calmly, "they'll think before they grab." Kip's ears flicked, always listening, always ready. And I realized something that unsettled me more than alarms ever had. Kara wasn't here to dominate Orion Collegium. She was here to retrain it, and institutions do not like being retrained. The real confrontation didn't start with teeth. That IT started with applause. 2 weeks after the lockdown, Orion Collegium held its annual interspecies strategy exhibition. Public event, press streams active, sponsors watching, future leaders performing for the galaxy. And for the first time, Kara's name was on the demonstration roster. Not lower tier. Not optional, featured. Paired against upper track cadets in live tactical simulation. Vero volunteered. Of course he did. Pride heals wrong when it's fed in. Public. The great hall was full again. But this time, the air was different. Students weren't laughing. They were watching. Kip sat beside Kara at the edge of the simulation grid. Official accommodation badge now clipped to his harness. Temporary. Pending review. Polite panic laminated. Dean Oren sat high in the gallery. Expression controlled. Marshall Cray stood near the lower rail. Arms folded. Observing. The simulation activated. Scenario. Civil unrest in a multi-species city center. Crowd density. High. Tension rising. Point one wrong move. Stampede. Vero took command immediately. Deploy force grid. Contain movement. Isolate agitators. He loved containment. Loved control. Kara waited. She studied the crowd behavior patterns, the stress spikes, the fear clusters. Then she said quietly, "Remove the grid." Vero scoffed. "That's the only barrier." "It's the trigger," she replied. That he ignored her. Activated containment. The simulation reacted instantly. Pressure built. Civilians redirected into tight channels. Heat zones spiked. Kara moved without asking permission. She rerouted communication lines instead of barriers, projected exit guidance, created visible space, lowered perceived threat. The simulation recalculated. Panic probability dropped. Vero's containment grid collapsed under simulated pressure. His sector failed. Kara's held. The final metrics flashed above the grid. Projected casualties under Vero's strategy, 41%. Projected casualties under Kara's adjustment, 9%. The hall didn't cheer. IT absorbed. That was worse. Vero stood stiff, staring at the numbers. He turned toward her. "You undermined me." "No," she said calmly. "I prevented escalation. You ignored command. You created panic." Marshall Cray's voice cut in from the rail. "Cadet Vero, explain your casualty projections." Vero's jaw flexed. "Force establishes control." Kara answered before he could recover. "Force creates reaction." The room shifted. Not toward her, toward the idea. Because suddenly this wasn't about APET. IT was about philosophy. After the demonstration, the press streams requested interviews. They wanted the human, the Death Worlder with the Predator, the one who stopped a lockdown. Dean Oren forced a polite smile. Kara stood beside Kip under bright lights. That a reporter drone hovered. "Student Vale?" asked. "How does it feel to bring Death World tactics into Orion Collegium?" Kara blinked once. "I didn't bring Death World tactics." The drone paused. "You didn't?" "No," she said evenly. "I brought boundaries." There was again that word, boundaries. Another question came. "Is your companion a deterrent?" Kara glanced down at Kip, but he sat calm. "Alert, present. He's not a weapon," she said. "He's a reminder." "Of what?" She looked directly into the recording lens. That actions have consequences. Across the hall, Vero watched. Across the balcony, Dean Oren calculated. Across the floor, students listened. And something subtle shifted. Fear was fading. Understanding was replacing it. That evening, a final vote was called in Administrative Council. Closed session. Formal. Decision on permanent accommodation status for companion animal that I wasn't supposed to see it, but records aid see everything eventually. The vote passed. Not unanimous, but decisive. Permanent companion allowance granted. Official. Policy update attached. Death World integration framework adopted. And no more temporary. No more pending. Institutional shift. The next morning, Kara walked across campus as usual. Kip at her heel. But this time, students didn't move away quickly. They moved with awareness. Space was given. Not out of fear. Out of understanding. Vero stood near the training yard. He didn't approach. He didn't sneer. He watched. Kara stopped near him. Not close. Close enough? You still think this isn't over? She asked calmly. Vero hesitated. Then shook his head once. No, it wasn't surrendered. IT was recalculation. Kara nodded. Good. She turned away. Kip followed. And that was the end of it. Not with a fight. Not with blood. With adjustment. Later, I updated her file one final time. Permanent accommodation approved. Behavioral risk. Low. Boundary enforcement. Effective. Institutional adaptation response. Successful. Then I added one more line. Subject did not destabilize Orion Collegium. Subject forced Orion Collegium to evolve. Because that was the truth that we thought we admitted a dangerous student. What we admitted was a mirror.a. Deathworlder didn't come to conquer us. She came with a dog and taught an entire institution the difference between fear and respect. Kip wasn't a monster, he wasn't a weapon, that he wasn't even the most dangerous thing in the room, that he was a line. And once everyone understood where the line was, no one needed to cross it again.